the Happy Families Podcast. It's the podcast for the time-poor parent who just wants answers now.
I can't emphasise this enough. Getting parenting right is not about habits. It's about our heart.
And now here's the stars of our show, my mum and dad.
Welcome to the Happy Families Podcast. I'm Dr. Justin Coulson. What are you laughing at?
You just went totally against everything I said.
I did. As soon as I opened the mic, something different came out to what you're expecting, didn't it? I'm here with Kylie, who I do listen to and take counsel from and influence from all the time.
Really, all the time.
Mum to our
except
6
for
daughters.
today.
Founder of happyfamilies.com.au. I might have already said that. And Kylie, you've had some insights just over the last few days as you've been doing story time with our 7-year-old.
Story time is literally like one of my favourite times of day. I just love that slower pace and being able to snuggle in bed together and reconnect.
At least you used to.
Well, yeah. You know, I used to love reading books like Edward the Emu was sick of the zoo. There was nowhere to go. There was nothing to do. When compared to the seals that lived right next door, well, being an emu was frankly a bore. That's one of my favourite stories. Do you know what she's getting me to read these days?
Share it.
The body of an insect is divided into 3 parts. The head houses the brain and supports the eyes, feelers and mouth parts. All insects have 6 legs on their thorax and many have wings. The abdomen contains the organs for digestion and reproduction.
You're saying that you're not enjoying reading stories with our 7-year-old anymore because it's more of a science
It doesn't
manual
have the
than a
same
story?
ring to it. Let's just put it that way. And she is just engrossed in all of these information books and she wants to know every detail about everything.
Yeah, how's that working for you? Is story time still as relaxing? You're still feeling as connected as you used to?
There's some really big words in there I have to work my way around, but she just loves it. And so as a result, I will learn to love it.
Hey, today we're talking about something really interesting, something that I think is going to be hopefully a lot of fun. We're talking about when my parenting techniques that I share with people all the time don't work.
You mean they don't work?
Well, no, they do. They do. Let me be really clear. They do. But a friend of ours, David, sent me a text message the other day, and he is a good mate, and he has given us permission to share his experience on the podcast. But David was in the kitchen when the children were having an interaction, shall we call it, with one another.
One of those interactions.
And he decided to try one of my parenting techniques, and all he said, he sent me a video of it, and underneath it he said, "Tried your technique, didn't work."
Uh-oh.
Let me share.
We already watched the whole episode of the show.
We already watched all of Shaun the Sheep.
No! We already watched all of Shaun the Sheep.
Sounds like you guys are having a hard time. Would you like me to help? How are you feeling at the moment?
I want to watch this.
What are you laughing at?
David sounded so engrossed in it, didn't he? There's so much passion in his voice as he asked each of those questions.
So firstly, David, thanks for giving us permission to share your parenting moment. I was going to say fail, but we'll just call it a moment for now. We'll dissect it in a minute. And when you listen to that, though, so David's obviously, he's given me a hard time because my parenting strategy didn't work. Because something that I say all the time is that when the kids are having a hard time, just gently intervene, say, "You guys seem to be having a rough time. What can I do to help? How can I help?" Or, "How are things feeling right now?" But when you listen to David do that, Kylie, can you think of any reasons that my parenting technique might not have worked in that instance? I mean, let's just quiz you and see if you can deconstruct it. And the reason that I'm doing this, by the way, is because we do tend to learn best when we're not listening to or participating in something with an expert, but with somebody who's kind of a bit like us. When we get to see their mistakes, we get better at it. If I want to become a better motorcycle racer, not that I ride motorcycles, of course, but if I were watching a GP Formula One motorcyclist, I don't even know what they call that thing, whiz around the track, I'm not going to learn much because they're just so far advanced compared to where I would be on a motorbike. I need to watch somebody who doesn't know very much, but just a bit more than me. So as you listen to David's interaction with his kids, what stood out to you?
Well, first and foremost, his tone. When you said the words, I melted. Maybe that's because I'm bias, but there was a genuineness to the things that you were saying, whereas it felt like David was like, oh, I'm just going to give this a go because the expert told me I should, but I don't believe it's going to work.
And this is the critical thing where having a script, this is why I actually don't like giving people scripts. I've started doing it because people beg me for what do I say? What do I do? But I can't emphasize this enough. Getting parenting right is not about habits. It's about our heart.
And it's not about getting the words right, right?
Right. It's three
Right.
rights in a
Right,
row,
right.
right? Yeah, right. It's not about that at all. It's about our hearts. And as you've pointed out, there's not a lot of heart in what David's saying. He's shouting from across the room. Oh, sorry, I'm answering the question. What else did you notice?
Well, he was shouting from across the room,
Shouting
Dr.
from across the
Justin.
room. Okay, and what else?
At no point did he actually engage with the children.
Yeah. So he was kind of shouting over the top of them from a different room. There's no eye contact. There's no humanity in it. It's literally just, it's kind of like when you ring a call center and you get this person on the other line, they pick up the phone and they say, that must be very hard for you. I'm so sorry for you. That kind of thing. I heard a comedian recently, his wife called a call center and she said, I've just received a letter from you, my insurer, and you're saying that my husband is dead. He's not dead. And the lady on the other end of the line in the call center said, I'm so sorry he's not dead. So when you've got a script, it doesn't always work because the context is kind of everything. And we've got to kind of be in the moment. So what David's done is he's called across the room. There's no feeling, there's no heart. He's just following the script. He's not connecting with the kids. Was there anything else?
Well, not only is he not just he's just following the script, but he's actually doesn't believe it's going to work.
You can kind of hear it in his voice, can't you? Yeah. And in fairness to David, I mean, he was kind of just giving me a hard time. He just wanted to shove it back at me and say, yeah, come on, Mr. Parenting Expert, what am I supposed to do now?
But it kind of goes back to that whole heart thing, doesn't it? It's like, what is the intent of our heart? Are we're doing this because our spouse thinks that, you know, we need to give things a go, we want to change things up, or do we actually care about what's happening in our space right now?
So if we're going to get this right, if our kids are fighting or if our children are having a hard time, big emotions, whatever it is, and we're trying our very best not to explode, we want to explore, and we want to help them to figure it out. There's got to be a better way, David. I'm so sorry. Now that we've completely demolished your parenting, we're going to come back after the break and talk about how we can get this right.
We call this constructive criticism, don't we?
And right, in fact, right after the break, there is more to the story. David did message me shortly afterwards and shared a little bit more that changes everything completely. Going to tell you what that is in just a sec.
It's the Happy Families Podcast.
For a happier family, try a Happy Families membership because a happy family doesn't just happen. Details at happyfamilies.com.au.
It's the Happy Families Podcast, the podcast for the time-poor parent who just wants answers now. And today we are dissecting David's parenting.
We're giving you answers now because you're time poor. So what do you do when the kids are fighting and you know that you're supposed to intervene and you've got the Dr. Justin Coulson script, but it's kind of not working for whatever reason?
Okay, but are we supposed to intervene?
Really interesting. I think that the very best parents have they have a level of discernment where they know when to step in and they know when to step out.
You know, it's really hard when you're in the same space and you can hear tension or contention. Like, it's really hard to not want to just scale it down really quickly, fix the problem.
They're your kids. You love them. They're supposed to love each other. And everyone wants peace and quiet, especially at about 6 o'clock at night when it's that time. Everyone's tired. So knowing when to step in and step out is the critical thing, I think. And in that situation, because they were just having an argument about a TV show, I would probably actually say, just step out. Don't get involved. No one's getting hurt.
Obviously, I couldn't see the video, but there were moments where there was dead space where the kids were kind of like, I've got to think of another argument to get my point across.
Yeah, we've already seen, what was this movie that they were talking about?
Shaun the Sheep.
I don't want to watch Shaun the Sheep.
We've seen it all.
I think that was the teenager that was saying that. He was the one with the deeper voice. So knowing when to step in and when to step out. Typically, when somebody crosses a line in terms of making threats, saying things that are just completely inappropriate and unkind, or when somebody looks like they're in danger of being hurt, that's when I recommend we intervene. But for the most part, our kids have got to figure this stuff out. And I mentioned that David did have more to the story, and I reckon it's probably worth sharing it. I messaged him back and laughed at his feeble attempt at implementing the strategy that I shared. And then he said, they worked it out on their own in the end. They're all happy now, which kind of highlights the point. We don't have to fix everything. As parents, we feel like we're supposed to be the police, the prosecutor, and the preacher. What I mean by that is that the police, that's the one who's stepping in and breaking it all up. The prosecutor, this is where we start to work out who's right and who's wrong and send someone to their bedrooms. And the preacher, that's when we step into lecture mode and we say, right, that's it. You need to learn. You've got to be nice to each other. And we say all those things that we swore we would never say when our parents were saying it to us, and now we're repeating it to the next generation.
Well, last week we had a really good discussion about this in book club, reading your book, 10 Things That Every Parent Should Know. And we talked about this whole idea of sibling rivalry.
I got to interrupt you.
Nope.
My book is called 10 Things Every Parent Needs to Know.
Oh, needs
it's
to know.
It's not what every parent should know. Needs to know. I just wanted to be clear about that because it is my book that you're quoting to me right now. By the way, book club happens every Wednesday night for 4 weeks every term for our Happy Families members. So you've got a bunch of people who are having a conversation with you about 10 things every parent needs to know.
Needs to know.
Because they need to know it.
They need it.
And what were you talking about?
We were talking about the vicious circle. This is something that we've done a lot in our home.
Yep.
And it really helps because sometimes the kids are going to work it out, but sometimes they're just not. So you want to talk us through what that vicious circle looks like?
Yeah, very, very briefly, because it's kind of complicated and you sort of need the model to work it out. But imagine if you've got a piece of paper, at the top of the piece of paper, you draw a box and you write what they did. You look at one of the kids and say, well, what did they do? And this is their opportunity to say, oh, they yelled at me and they called me a name and they hit me and they took my toy and they stood in front of the TV. They get to say all the stuff that their sibling did to them. Then you draw a box down and to the right. You're going to draw 4 boxes in total. One at the top, one at the bottom, one on the left and one on the right, in the middle. And so the second one is down on the right-hand margin, and that's how I felt. So you say to your child, well, how did you feel? And they say, I felt aggrieved. I felt vulnerable. I felt, well, they're actually not going to use those words.
I was going to say, those are some big words for my 5-year-old.
Although, I remember doing this with our 7 and 10-year-old a few years ago, children 4 and 5. And our 7-year-old, Lily, she was 7 at the time, she looked at me and I said, how'd you feel when Annie did that to you? Annie was 10. Lily looked at me with this glint in her 7-year-old eye and said, vengeful.
Wow.
Great word. I was so proud of her. I mean, I wasn't very happy that she felt vengeful, but I was like, yeah, you know how you were feeling. Good work. And so then at the bottom, after they've told us how they feel, we say, well, what did you do? And we draw another box there, what I did. So the 3 boxes so far, what they did, how I felt, what I did. And
do you find in that spot when you ask them what they did that they're not as detailed?
Yeah, because they all of a sudden have to own their part in this conflict.
So they'll give you every single detail of what someone else has done, but when it gets to them, they'll just kind of say, well, I tapped her on the shoulder.
Yeah, that's right. I pretended to kick her and I might have accidentally just got her.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. And I usually do it in front of both siblings. So I'll look at the other one and say, is this accurate? Is there anything that she's missed? So they get the chance to really take responsibility, ownership, be accountable for their behavior. And then the last question is the most important one. So this is the one that's in the middle on the left-hand side, in the left-hand margin. It's how they felt. So I'm talking to the one who looks like they're the victim. And I'm asking the victim, what did the aggressor do? How did it make you feel? Now let's turn the tables. What did you do? And then how did the aggressor feel when you did that to them? And this requires empathy. This requires perspective taking. They've actually got to acknowledge that in being the victim initially, their counterattack has turned them into the perpetrator, the aggressor. And then I draw arrows between those 4 boxes so that it creates a circle and it becomes what I call a vicious circle. Because once that initial aggressor has become the victim, what do? Well, they act out again, and this thing just keeps on going around and around and around. So that's the vicious circle in sort of 2 minutes or less.
And so when you don't have that vicious circle and that model, what you end up with is he said, she said, and you just keep going back and forth and you don't get anywhere.
That's agony, yeah.
Whereas this actually allows our kids to actually see where they are responsible
Pretty much.
And take accountability for what they're doing while acknowledging what's been done and how they felt about it.
But remember, this is the conversation that you have when everyone's calmed down afterwards. So
David couldn't have gone in if this situation didn't get better in quickly. He wouldn't be able to go in and just have that conversation with them while they were still all
emotional. No, because high emotions, low intelligence. So in a nutshell, the take-home message is this. David, you blew it. You got it all wrong because you were doing it as a script. You were doing it as a habit. You weren't doing it from your heart. We need to make sure we've got our kids.
We can't wait for your next video, though.
we need to make sure that we've got our kids' eye contact. We need to engage with them in a way that shows that we're trying to actually connect and work things out together. And then ideally we don't step in unless we really have to. We're careful about when we step in. We try to stay out of it as much as possible. I like to call it sort of this benign neglect. It's not a harmful sort of neglect. It's like, you guys will figure it out and I'm here just in case. And then we step in when we have to. And then later on, we sit down and we go through the vicious circle. I mean, you don't want to go through it all the time. It's kind of taxing. There's a lot to it, but you want to do it when emotions are low. That's the real take-home message, I'd say.
I think one of the things that I've noticed over the years with each of the kids is at different times when we've actually noticed that there's been conflict through the day, but they've been able to resolve it together, having a conversation with them at the end of the day and just acknowledging how they worked through that and how proud you are of the fact that they were able to do those things in a way that left everybody feeling whole.
Yeah. For our Happy Families members, we've actually got a couple of really strong webinars about how to work through that vicious circle and how to deal with challenges with siblings. That's in the premium membership. You can go back through the webinar archive and check them out. And the book that we're talking about is 10 Things Every Parent Needs to Know. All of our Happy
Needs to know. Just putting it out there.
I got it right. That's
I
what
know
I said.
you did,
Okay.
but I'm just emphasising your words.
Needs to know. 10 things every parent needs to know. That's the book. You can get it online everywhere. And if you're a Happy Families member, you can participate in book club on Wednesday night for week 3 of 10 things every parent needs
to know.
We really hope that you've enjoyed the podcast. Hope that it's helpful when it comes to dealing with the challenges that kids present to us. David, thanks for being such a good sport about it. The Happy Families podcast is produced by Justin Rulon from Bridge Media with Craig Bruce, our executive producer. If you'd like more info about making your family happier, jump online to happyfamilies.com.au.